Well, when I started writing songs, I was predominantly writing for myself because I felt if I wrote for myself, I would really write a true, honest song. When I then signed a publishing deal with Warner Chappell, they obviously wanted me to write for other artists, and so I started, and I was working with people like Simply Red, Fine Young Cannibals, people, art bands like that. It was, they were looking for the next Duran Duran, Kajagoogoo, all those type of bands. I mean, that was what I was playing up against. So I then decided actually to go to America, and I went to live in New York because there my style of music had a place. But not wanting to be in the so-called sort of celebrity world of the music industry, it was quite hard because they couldn't promote me. And I really just wasn't interested in that side of the music business. I just wanted to write great songs. I mean, I loved writing for all these different bands. I certainly loved writing for the Sugar Babes. They were very talented young women, and to be able to start something right at the beginning and to be able to give them a song that signed them to a record label, I'm very proud of that. And I'm a very quiet, spiritual person when it comes to writing my songs, and I felt the whole industry was looking at it in the wrong way for me. So I rather bowed out at the end of the 80s and really started then just writing songs for myself. Mindwalking for me was exactly the way I wanted that album to sound. And the songs, I mean, each song has a very individual production. I was allowed to produce my own songs, which was fantastic. To be able to write a song and then go into a studio and create all the sound and the whole picture of a song is, a real treat. I was very conscious of being 6 months pregnant, and I think a lot of Mindwalking's effect and success has been my voice on it, which was very tempered, it was very calm, it was very quiet really. And some of the songs are quite robust, but the voice was gentle, and that was partly due to I didn't want to upset Finley. Well, I mean, the Brave Songs for me was absolutely about Nick's book. I read the first draft of his book. I'd always had this idea of the synergy between an album and the book. In doing the album and reading Nick's book, I had very, very powerful emotions when I read certain things, and I just wrote that down in my notebook. And then I read the first draft, finished it, and I came up with maybe 12, 14 ideas of songs from that first draft, and I just started. But the book is visceral. It has some very powerful, unpleasant and uncomfortable dialogue in it, and I really wanted to encapsulate that in the music. And so, for instance, the electric guitars I've used a lot on this album. There's a real intensity and live drama in the music because the book had that. And for me, the song has always been about the story, it's always been about expression and making statements. And I think the Brave Song, for me, is probably going to be a little bit of a statement. I'm very fond of Steel and There's a Sigh, and Move Away. These are my favourites. I think Steel, for me, I wrote in half an hour. It was one of those moments I was outside on a walk. I got this idea. I started running home. I had my iPhone with me, but I couldn't get the microphone thing to work on it. And I ran back here to the house, went upstairs to the studio, put my computer on, and I just slammed it on. and I got a rhythm and a bit of guitar, and I just sang into the computer. And that was it. I just, half an hour. And when songs come like that, that's very special. The ones that have always been the kind of hits for me are the ones that are sourced from somewhere, and they whoosh, straight through me, out onto the page. I mean, it was a terrifying experience, as you can probably imagine. My whole family in hospital. They were mushrooms that came over on the warm winds from Scandinavia and plonked the seeds in Scotland, and they looked identical to a very common mushroom called a cep. And they really didn't know if we were going to make it or not. And I think it was really just my son, my young son. I have an 8-year-old son, and who really kept me alive. I mean, he wasn't there, but I had a picture of him next to my bed in the hospital, and every time I turned over, I saw his face. And I thought, I have to fight. I didn't want to. I was then so depleted, and my body was so depleted. I thought, I haven't got the energy. But somehow looking at my son, and then about a week after having been at Aberdeen, they allowed me out of bed, and I walked down this long, long corridor, and I found an old dilapidated piano just stuck under a stairwell. And I opened it up, and I sat down, and I put my fingers on the keys, and I burst into tears. And I just realized in that moment that if I didn't push, I'd never play again. But in completing this project and doing the brave songs, you know, there's no doubt about it that I was definitely given special energy. I felt so watched over completing it. And there were days when I collapsed in the studio. To all those NHS doctors and nurses who saved our lives, and yeah, I really felt very strongly about that. So they were terrific, those nurses, and I felt they were just such a part of this whole project. Actually, without them, I wouldn't have finished it. You know, my brother and my husband and I are all on dialysis. We all had, you know, kidney failure. But all three of us, fingers crossed, we've all got live donors, and hopefully next year we'll all have transplants. But it's been 2 years now since that time, and so, you know, we're just hoping and praying that it'll work out. It doesn't always, but we just have to see how it goes. But extraordinary things come out of extraordinary times, you know, and there my husband's got a great book out, and I believe I've got a beautiful album, and I just hope people will find them and listen and read, and, you know, maybe encapsulate something of what's happened to us, because there's no doubt about it, what happened to us is on that record and is in that book.